GDC continues. We are here talking to Matt Tieger. You are the executive producer?
Game director.
Game director on Transformers War for Cybertron. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Now, you just gave us a good demo, good look at the game. It's the first time that we've seen it. And you've kind of talked a little bit about the philosophy behind it. What was your approach? What was the idea behind Transformers War for Cybertron?
The most important thing for us was starting on core gameplay concepts, how it feels, the controller under your thumb, good frame rate, good controls, snappy targeting. All that kind of stuff was where we started, and then onto that, we layered the Transformer elements. You can be a vehicle at any time, right? So it changes the way you're going to think about how to play in a third-person action game, right? Because you can be that vehicle and be across the map in a split second, it changes flanking, it changes how you think about dealing with the AI and interacting with them.
I imagine that then, in turn, had a big influence on how you approached level designs if you have these kind of non-traditional abilities for the characters that you're playing as.
Actually, it is the thing, right, that determines all the... And I will not say it's been an easy challenge, right? Figuring out how players are going to perceive the world and then giving them ways to manipulate that world, change that world in ways that are interesting based on transformation was the core concept that we put together in the level design.
Where are we in the Transformers oeuvre?
Nice, good word. Transformers, their homeworld is called Cybertron, right, if you don't know anything about Transformers. And the Autobots have been at war with the Decepticons for millions of years. But this is well before they ever come to Earth, right? We're going to tell the story that the last waning moments of their civil war, Autobot versus Decepticon. And they've never heard of Earth. They don't know about anything at Earth. And where we finish our story is, it's the story that we're kind of used to, or we've heard before, where they leave their homeworld and come to Earth. They don't know where they're going when they ultimately decide to leave. So it's that last bit of their civil war on their home.
So the very end of this game is basically the first episode of the cartoons.
That's pretty much exactly where we sync up. We finish right before the cartoons from 1984 start.
Where is it that you are pulling your inspirations from as far as design ethics?
I will tell you that Transformers is kind of an intimidating property, right? There are so many incarnations that are all innately in themselves cool. We wanted to find our own style within that. So where we rooted ourselves was in the G1, Generation 1, the cartoon, the first season of the cartoon, as our initial starting point. And that's where we drew most of our reference. There's some fantastic comics out there. There's some, the movies have cool elements too. So we added bits to that, but what we did is we focused on what made an Autobot and what made a Decepticon, and then also what are the key components of every individual character, right? There's certain elements about Optimus that make him Optimus. The big chest, right? The pointy ears, all that other stuff has to be there in every version of him, but then we wanted to find our own way, this kind of style and design that's a bit nostalgic, but also modern.
Let's talk a little bit about just kind of the inherent difference in handling between these types of characters.
So you have the four vehicle types, right? Cars, trucks, planks, tanks, and planes, right?
New combination, yeah. Planks. Look for it.
Never seen it happen.
DLC coming soon.
Obviously the jets are kind of have their own very different way of thinking things because you've got that vertical element within it. But tanks are big and beefy and strong, right? Cars are nimble and fast. They've all got individual weapons and special abilities that are tied intimately to those characters. So trucks, for example, as one great example, have this ram ability. Over the short distance, they're actually the fastest vehicle that we have, and if you get in their way, you will be completely creamed. So what you use is your vehicle skills in addition to all your robot skills that you've got in tactical choices.
And now you're going to be playing as both Autobots and Decepticons. Let's talk a little bit about just the structure of the game and how that plays out.
So, two very distinct stories, right? The Decepticon campaign is a prequel to the Autobot campaign. First and foremost, you can play either campaign in any order that you want to, right? If you love Autobots, I'm not going to make you play the Decepticon campaign first. But they're two very different stories. In the Autobot campaign, it's really the story of Optimus and as he grows in his leadership of the Autobots. When we start out, he's not the guy in charge. He's not Optimus Prime. But when we finish, he's fully invested in his destiny of being the leader of the Autobots. And he takes them from a very hopeless place to a place of hope. The Decepticon campaign is completely not that at all, right? It's all about Megatron, right? And Megatron's quest for power and his desire to rule Cybertron. But, Megatron is not evil just for the sake of being evil. He believes he's doing the right thing. He is trying to reset Cybertron back to what he would call the golden age. And so he's willing to risk everything to get to that point. And so we follow him through his story as he's growing in his megalomania, right? and we kind of get to the point where the Decepticons are really poised to take over Cybertron, and that's where the Autobot story begins.
What would you say is the most obscure Transformer that you guys have tucked in here?
I will honestly tell you, he's kind of a C-level guy, right? But I personally like him. His name's Warpath. And Warpath is, I don't know, you're going to have to dig way back into the cartoon knowledge. He's the guy who would say, blam, pow. Yes. That's right. Okay, he's a big red tank.
Yep.
The reason he's in there is, remember, it's all about getting that core gameplay to feel right and play right. And what I needed was an Autobot tank. I needed a tank to fill out the ranks and allow us to make some interesting combat choices, right? There's not a lot of Autobot tanks, and so I had to kind of dive back a little bit to some of the less popular characters to find Warpath and then create that guy. And honestly, I'm so thrilled with the way that guy turned out. He looks really good. He turned out with a really cool and interesting personality. And over the course of the level where you're interacting with him, he and Ironhide have some really interesting interactions where they have kind of a competition going on.
Any headmasters?
No headmasters. Sorry, dodged that bullet, but no headmasters in this one.
Good call. I think you made the right decision there.
The tough part, I said Transformers is kind of an intimidating property. There are literally hundreds of really cool characters. So boiling that down to only the certain ones that you're going to tell a story about was a difficult challenge, But the philosophy took was only pick the ones that service the story and make sure then do them justice. So that's why we didn't spread ourselves too thin with quintessence or pretenders or all. I mean, there's a huge way that we could go. The way I approach it with my team when they come up with all these great ideas is after I sell 300 million units, I will happily add those guys to the next game. That's the plan.
We'll make the Junkion side story soon enough.
We'll go to the junk planet. We'll do it. Yeah, there's still 300 million units first.
Transformers War for Cybertron. What's this coming out on, and when are you coming out?
This summer you get to play it. It's on the Xbox 360, PS3, and PC.
Excellent. Thanks for your time, sir.
Yeah, my pleasure.